Welcome to our podcast, Life Eventually,
And we are just two women.
working to figure it out eventually.
I am Dr. Alicia Yvette.
I am Melinda Yvette. Welcome back to another episode of Life Eventually. Today, we're going to be doing something super fun, super interesting. I'm really excited about it. We're going to be doing the AncestryDNA test on me. I'm super excited. Alicia is going to be giving us a lot of information because this is something that she's truly passionate about. And I think we're going to learn a whole lot about me. So, Alicia, tell me what we're doing, how we do this, what are we going to learn from this?
So, AncestryDNA is one of several different DNA kits that you can do at home, and you basically mail in and get your results. Most often when people do AncestryDNA, even if they know their family history, they often find things that they didn't know or cousins that are semi-close that they had no idea existed, and a whole lot of other secrets that could come out with it. I find it really fun. I work on a lot of cases for people, whether they're adopted or have an unknown father. And I think it's really important to understand where you come from, especially if you go through your life not knowing your parents or something. So I actually, before I go into all the details of what it is, I actually didn't know what it was for a long time. And I was on Facebook, and there was a man who was telling me he was my uncle and that he was my mom's brother.
Strange.
Yes. And he was hitting up my whole family and saying that all my great uncles were his dad. And I was just like, oh my goodness, this is kind of weird. Like, how did he know? Like, why us? So I did talk to him, although I was a little nervous. And he told me he matched my mother on AncestryDNA. I had never done it. I think I had heard of it. So I didn't tell him, but I went and took a test myself without letting him know. And I figured if I match him, he's really my family and I should help him. And so I did the test. And the day I got my results, before I even saw I had results, he messaged me like, hey, cousin. And I was like, oh, my God, like, you're really close to me. Like, he matches me almost as a first cousin level.
Wow.
Yeah, he's on the borderline of being either my mother's first cousin or a half sibling. And it's actually right on the border, and we have no idea. So from there, finding that discovery, my mother started going to my grandmother and saying, oh, you're not my mom. And my grandmother's like, your great-grandma saw you come out of me, so I don't know what to tell you, like, other than, yes, I am your mother. And so I was really upset at this because I'm like, I know my grandmother, like, why? So I bought a kit for my grandmother, too, and had her test. And it comes up she's my mother's mom, but she was not related to the man, Michael, who DNA tested. So it's like, okay, he's definitely on my mom's dad's side.
Yeah, he could possibly be like a half sibling, maybe?
Yes, or a full first cousin. Those are the only two options. So then I tested who my mother thought was her father, and he did not match me. He did not match my mother. He did not match Michael. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, clearly it's someone else. So I started using Ancestry and all the matches to try to figure out who it is. And Michael had done a lot of years of work using Ancestry and other sources because he's been searching his whole life. So now I'm like, this is part of my project is to help him find his parents. And we have narrowed down his mom and dad, but we don't have certainty. We don't have proof of who they are. We don't have descendants to test. And then his dad, we have no idea. We just know he's an Ecuadorian man. So from there, I had a lot of matches I didn't know. And they didn't know where they came from. And I at least had a good clue from all the people I had tested. So I started helping people on my match list. And it kind of expanded from there, like word of mouth. I joined a lot of groups, and I just literally pick up kits for people and try to solve it. Sometimes it takes a long time. It doesn't come together. Sometimes it takes 2 years to get that one match that makes it all make sense, and I can do it. So I probably do it like every day. I check the matches, see if there's new people, but there's a strategy where you can split your matches. Because first, you'll always have two sides. You have your mom's side and your dad's side. And then from there, each side can also be divided into grandmother, grandfather. So you just keep doing this until you can find a couple that matches the people. Like, you have two separate groups that are related. You're supposed to find out who made these two people come together and who's descended from them. And then I go through all the children.
Right.
So it's been really fun. Anybody have questions, definitely hit me up and, ask what, if you need any help understanding your matches, because that's actually the reason why I help people so much. A lot of people test, but then they get the results expecting it to be like, this is the father, or this is, and it's not clear at all. And it's difficult to use the tools. So I like to help people. Usually I could take a look and then I can at least get more of information out of what's there than most people who first look at it.
I'm excited because you know me, I am almost like computer illiterate at this point. So I'm excited that I have you to guide me to figure out what exactly I'm going to receive back from this. Seeing as how you've explained it, that it could be very difficult or take a while to really understand what I'm actually receiving back. So I'm excited that I have somebody that is knowledgeable, that is excited as much as I am to really figure out what is going on, like who's who and what ethnicity I really am. Because, there could be new things that I don't know.
Definitely. And I think there are. I've taken a look at your family tree. So before we start talking about our family tree, I have gotten you a DNA test today, and we have it in front of us right now in the studio.
Yes.
So when you get an AncestryDNA kit, you can get them off of Amazon or the AncestryDNA site, and you get a box that comes with a card that has a registration code. It has a resealable bag with like a little piece of absorbent cloth in it. And then there's the actual sample collector, which is a tube, which comes with a little cup on the top so you can spit. And then down the tube, there's like a squiggly line that is the line where you're supposed to spit without bubbles. So if you have bubbles, it'll go over that line.
Okay.
It has to be spit up to that level.
Yeah, it says
a little intimidating.
It literally says spit to here.
Yes.
It is kind of like it seems like a lot, but from what you tell me, it's not. But
take your time. Yeah.
As someone looking at this for the first time, I'm like, wow, that's like a massive amount of spit. Like, I don't know if I spit that much, do I? I don't even know. So this might take me a little bit. But, it's very easy from looking at it.
Yeah, it comes out with a cup attached to it. You just...
And it literally tells you, spit
yes.
to here. Like, you cannot mess this up.
Sometimes if you need to take time and, like, spit a little bit and put it down, and you can do that. You don't want to spread it out for too long, and you definitely don't want to eat or drink or smoke within 30 minutes of doing the test. You want to make sure you haven't done that. Some people, they have problems getting enough DNA in their spit, so some people like to scrape their cheek with a spoon or use a sterile Q-tip, like if you can get like the sealed ones, and then you could dip it in the spit to kind of just make sure those cheek cells with your actual DNA it's not the spit that carries your DNA. It's when you get cheek cells and other cells from your body go into the spit, then so they extract that, and it takes a few weeks.
Well, that's very interesting to know because I genuinely didn't know that. It's really from your cheek cells. Like, because I'm like, well, it's telling me to spit, so I'm assuming it's going to go from my spit. But, I think that's really interesting to know as someone who never done this before. I would have just assumed it's just based off of, whatever they find in my spit. So it's good to know that it's like, it's literally just your, what is it?
The cheek cells,
Your cheek cells.
Yeah, and so sometimes what happens is if someone spits and they don't have enough DNA in their sample, sometimes the test will fail. But Ancestry will send you another kit, and then that's when you would implement, scraping your cheeks. Some people bite their cheeks to try to just get those cells to come off, and just to guarantee that you will get enough DNA in the sample for them to extract.
During this conversation, I don't know if you've already noticed, I was already biting on my cheeks on the inside because I'm like, oh, okay.
Yes, and so along with the collection tube does come a little vial with a cap, and it has a light blue liquid in it, and that is the stabilization fluid. So once you're done spitting to the line, you'll take off the little cup that's on top that helps you catch the spit, and then you will replace it with a cap. And once you cap it tightly, the blue liquid will come out and mix with the spit, and you want to shake it really good. And then that's what preserves the DNA while it gets shipped off in the mail, and it makes it last weeks.
Oh, wow.
I work with DNA in the lab, so we have similar buffers, and DNA is very, very stable. At one time in the lab, we had to mail DNA to another lab. And if you did it as liquid, there's like a whole lot of handling and customs and a lot of things that go into it. But a nice handy trick is you could actually blot it just on a piece of paper. So I just literally plopped, a drop of DNA on the paper, circled where I plopped it, sent it in the mail, and they were able to soak the paper, and they were able to get the DNA off this paper.
Wow, that's very interesting. That is so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. So then after you cap with the stabilization fluid, you shake it really well. It also comes with a pre-addressed box that's pre-stamped, so you just have to put it in the little resealable bag that has the absorbent pad, which is there in case it spills. You don't want to take out that pad. You want to keep that in the bag. And then you just put it in the box and drop it in a mailbox. You don't have to label it. You don't have to, do anything else. The only thing you will have to do is take the card that comes with it, and it has like a 16 or 15-digit code. You want to make sure you write that down and keep that, because when you go into Ancestry, that's how you register your kit, and they know it's yours. Okay. And that's pretty much it. And then you will get emails if you sign up by text or email that will tell you it's made it to processing, it's made it to analysis, and it'll walk you through. And then once you get your results, it will show you mainly two things with it, which is your ethnicity estimate and your DNA matches. Your DNA matches are based off of your DNA sequence, and it will tell you how much they match you. And that mostly won't change unless there's new matches that haven't been in the database, and you'll get new matches. The ethnicity estimate is just an estimate, and as they get more data, that will change. I like to pay more attention to the matches because those are your actual family. The ethnicity estimate, really cool because it's accurate, but sometimes it's an estimate at the end of the day.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
I am very oddly salivating just thinking about doing this. I don't know if it's excitement or just knowing that I have to spit at some point. But I definitely am salivating just looking at the tube, which it's very strange.
Yeah, I think there is a little, I think it's your mind. I do find that because you're getting yourself ready. You kind of know what's coming.
I feel like I'm swallowing a lot more during this conversation I'm salivating to a point that it's a little stressful.
But yeah, so you'll be able to take this test today, and we will send it out. And hopefully in 5 to 6 weeks, we will know where you are from for sure and more about your family history. Do you want to tell us what you expect from your results?
So from what I understand, I am mostly Puerto Rican. My parents are Puerto Rican. My grandparents are Puerto Rican. And that's as far as I know. I don't know much more pretty much after. I mean, I know that my grandmothers on both sides, I know that their parents are also from Puerto Rico, but I don't know anything after that. So, and I'm not very close with my family to that extent. So this is going to be very enlightening for me to learn more about where my family is from, who even is my family. So I just pretty much expect that I'm going to be Puerto Rican. I mean, I think that's a given. But I am interested to know if I have anything else, could I be a little bit Portuguese? Because from the little bit of studying I did on Wikipedia, that's free promo right there. I looked up and I saw that in Puerto Rico, there were Portuguese soldiers that were there at some point. And also, I was wondering if I could possibly have some African in me because there was some slavery there. Mm-hmm. So I'm very interested to know if I'm anything other than Puerto Rican. That'll be very exciting to learn about.
Yes. And I am Puerto Rican as well through my dad. My dad is Puerto Rican. So I've done my DNA, as I mentioned, so I pretty much know where my family comes from. My dad, I always knew he was Puerto Rican. I look a lot like him. My brother looks like him. So I never had doubts about that. And, my kid actually said in my ethnicity estimate, like Northwest Puerto Rico, like almost to the exact location. It was very specific. Also, even for other people I've tested, my husband's Haitian, it says Afro-Haitian in his ethnicity estimate. Like,
Wow.
it's exact. Like, it knows he's Haitian versus Dominican, which is crazy because it's the same island.
Yes.
I have a very, very mixed ancestry on my mom's side. Although Puerto Ricans on their own are mixed, as you mentioned, the Taino, the African, Spaniard, and interestingly, you brought up the Portuguese, which isn't brought up as much, but they colonized just as much as Spain did. And so they are very present in a lot of the islander communities that were involved in the slave trade. So I think I have Portuguese, as well as the Spaniard. I have indigenous Puerto Rico. I do have African, but that also comes from my grandmother. On my mom's side, so my mother is very mixed. Her mom is Jamaican, French Canadian, and Black from the South. And then on her dad's side, which we had never known her dad, he was abusive to my grandmother. He was married to her for a short amount of time. And so he actually is, we always thought my mother was just white on that side, that she was just Irish and French Canadian. But turns out that she is Cape Verdean, Irish, and English.
What a mix.
Yes. And it turns out that my mother actually does have French Canadian hair, but it's through my grandmother. And that's when I first did my mother's results, or my results. That's why I tested my grandfather, although it was family rumor, he wasn't related. When I saw French Canadian and I saw Irish, I was like, there's a shot like that he actually is my grandfather. But it wasn't. So I started from there, like really just digging into like the Cape Verdean side and also learning more about the Irish side. I've traced my English ancestry back to Salem and also back to the Mayflower.
Wow.
Yes, and unfortunately, the way that our history is set up, white people have a much better time doing genealogy than minority populations. Mostly has to do with documentation, money. Families are just well established, and for a long time, and aren't basically being oppressed by some colonizer. In Puerto Rico, there's a lot of also naming conventions that make it complicated and a lot of common names. And then in, like just being Black in the United States, you have slavery, which is, you changed your names. You don't keep your names that, were to you. So what will happen, especially a minority, will test and they'll see all these great results from other people that they've gotten, but I do find it's much easier to solve a white kit than a Black one, and also African Americans, they tend not to put their trees up as much. We just don't have as much trust in these type of systems. So that's why, in particular, I really like taking on these cases, because I hope that I can get enough knowledge and information to really help people who need it the most. Although I have solved a lot of cases where people of white descent. It's nothing against them. I find that their history and lineage is just as interesting. Like, I found it in my own, like going back to the Mayflower, it's really cool, but I just wish I could also build back my Puerto Rican side that far, my Cape Verdean side that far, and have that on all sides, not just one.
Makes sense. I think that was very knowledgeable. It was definitely, I know I'm very quiet, but I'm like, wow, this is like such great information that I had no idea. And I would have never known that there was a discrepancy on, whether you're Caucasian or if you're African American, that there would be that much of a difference in the genealogy world. Like, that in general in life, but I didn't think, I guess, in the science world. I don't know. I guess I just didn't put two and two together.
Yeah, there's a definitely interesting issue there. I definitely want to see that fixed, because I think everyone deserves representation in our history and
Absolutely.
people to know their past and where they come from. I work really hard on these kids. And what I think a lot of African Americans also find surprising is the precise percentage of white that they have. I think even my husband, who's Haitian, he's only like 90%, and he still has 10% like Irish in him.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's I think that's another surprise people get when they take the test is they don't think they're as white. Like especially if you're like a dark-skinned black person, you expect that you're going to be like 99, at least 99% black.
Yeah.
And that's almost never the case. And so what will happen is because there's overrepresentation of white people testing, you actually get a lot of DNA matches with white people. And sometimes that can be discouraging because when people are looking, they're like, I'm not looking for the slave owner who raped my, my great-great-great-grandmother. I'm looking for my black family. And that's the hardest part to find. And so even in my own search, sometimes I'll even ignore that side because it's like pretty much it's a hard part of history that happened often. And sometimes it does help me link in so I could know, like, okay, at least your great-great-great, was a person on this plantation. And then this is what happened with their owner. Like, but I won't really dig that far into branching out that lineage because it's not something a lot of people would really want to remember or recall or have documented or share with the world because it's very negative, and it's and I think we still have reminders that this happened, and as much as people want to forget, we're not going to.
So I truly I see that, and that makes a lot of sense that you wouldn't want to kind of go too far in that because it's not really a direct reflection of you as a person or being a family member. That's kind of like a forced family.
Yes.
So you really don't want that kind of information. I can understand that.
I've seen one case. I'm in a lot of genealogy group, and there was a man who actually found, he found this exact situation where his grandmother was raped or, distant grandmother by a slave owner. And he actually made amends with the descendants. Like he actually became like family with the descendant of the slave owner, which is very rare. And he actually got some criticism, for that. But I respect it. It's still your DNA. Sometimes you can accept it or you can. I am totally fine with anybody want to do with their own DNA. If they want to acknowledge certain parts and ignore other parts with our history, I think that's totally acceptable. But I think it was inspiring that he accepted that side for what it was. I mean, a lot of this happened before we were born. So no one here who's alive today is at fault for this. But it's still good to be aware.
Absolutely.
So for my Puerto Rican side, I have over 100,000 cousins, and I think it will be like 100,001 because I just find that a lot of Puerto Rican people I am related. Part of it is because people are on a small island. It's not incest. It's just that there's only a certain amount of DNA that's churning around in this area. So we're going to have a lot of cousins either way. And when I started building your family tree on Ancestry, you were able to find a lot of info from your mom. And I actually started to find basically your whole family tree, at least on your dad's side, was already built. Even on your mom's side was already pretty much ready to go. And it turns out you actually know the person who built your dad's side. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So, it's my mother's side.
Oh, your mother's side.
So it is my grandmother's brother, his wife actually did the DNA testing. So she is the one that actually plugged in a lot of the information. They lived at the time in Tennessee. So she was just, I think, probably just curious of, just like how we are right now. So I think that's where we got a lot of our information from because she plugged in a lot. And I mean, she even had photos that I've never seen before. It was very, very shocking and exciting to see those photos. Because like even one member we saw was like a painting of I think it was my grandmother's father.
Yes.
It was really interesting to see that. I've never, ever seen it before. I've only seen, obviously, his pictures, but obviously he was a lot older. I've never really seen any photos of him when he was younger. So that was really cool to see. And I sent them to my mother. My mother was really excited about the pictures. So that's really cool. And the idea that there is a possibility that there could be some kind of way that we're family because we're Puerto Rican is really exciting, because then it's like it takes this podcast to like a whole other level.
I know. It's like, okay, it's cousin podcast. Yeah, and I'm just so excited about it. Definitely have learned so much from Ancestry, and I really just learned how important it is to some people to know. Like for me, I know my family, and okay, cool. Like, it doesn't, sometimes I wish I wasn't. I wish did have this other family I could go out and find. But, for some people, it really leaves a hole in their life. So I try to help, and definitely excited to take on more cases as things free up and I can have more time.
My mother is super excited about this. She is so curious because for some reason she has always had this like kind of feeling that maybe there's another sibling out there, and that would be very, very shocking. My grandfather on my mother's side has 2 daughters from a previous marriage before my mother. So she has 2 older sisters, and then he got married to my grandmother, and then there's my mother and my aunt. So they, have always had their family, but my mom is thinking that there might be a brother out there.
That'd be crazy if she was right. And the Ancestry will tell you what would come up, because this would be a half brother, if so, because they don't have the same mom. It would likely show as close family through first cousin, because it can't actually identify it, because this is part of my trouble with my border first cousin half sibling, is that there's a few relationships there. So I believe a grandparent will have a similar relationship as the as a half sibling. There's like I think an uncle or aunt has a similar relationship. So you will see that it's not always clear cut, which is where it gets complicated. But if we get anyone who's even within that range, we'll know immediately. It'll actually be the top results. And
that would be such a big deal for this podcast if we found out that I had an uncle out in the world, just out there. That would be major.
I mean, I found a lot of close family. Like, I found my dad's half brother. I found my grandmother's first cousins on her dad's side. She didn't know her dad either. That's another mystery I solved within my family. And I even found I tested my great grandmother, and I confirmed, because there was doubts that her dad was her dad. I could actually confirm that he is who he is. So I kind of like 3 generations
That's so
up.
exciting.
Yeah, and it just built in so many missing pieces and put so many like family stories to rest. Like, even my great uncle had a child, and I was talking to my family. I'm like, yeah, like so-and-so popped up in my matches. Like, they were like, oh, I thought that wasn't actually his child. I'm like, well, she's definitely related to grandma, like,
Wow.
because she's in his, like, as a grandchild, like, she's legit. And she, like, I feel bad because I never knew this cousin, but clearly people treated her a different way because they didn't think she was family, and it turns out the whole time she was. So
that's unfortunate.
yeah, I never had an idea there was doubt, That's why I'm talking about it casually, like, oh, yeah, so-and-so came up. But I have a good amount of family plotted. I've been looking through your family, found some interesting things. I have 1% Haitian and Dominican, which I always claim it because we both have Haitian men. I definitely claiming that Haitian ancestry. And when I was looking through your tree, I actually found that you do have Haitian ancestors, at least the way it's built. And kind of made me curious, and I but searched within my own results of all the people who put Haiti in their family tree, and actually had like over 50 results. So I think that there is a legitimate connection to Haiti, which I think is really interesting.
That's exciting.
My brother has the same he has the same percentage I do. It's really low, but it's there. And so hopefully one day I'll get my dad to test, and we'll find out.
I'm so excited. You guys really need to tune in, because what if I have an uncle out there in this world that I never knew about? And what if I really am a little bit Haitian, just like my man? And I love his side of the family. They're just so amazing. So if I am even a little bit, I am claiming it to the full extent of the law.
Same here. I mean, I've already been claiming it, and I don't just because I have the 1% in my ancestry, I'm like, yep, that's it. I'm Haitian. I've always loved Haitian food. I've had a lot of Haitian friends, being from Brockton definitely gave us a lot of exposure to Haitian people, and I think it's a wonderful culture.
So, all right, I hope that everybody stays tuned for this. Be excited. Share this with all your friends. Like we said, we're going to do this right now. We're going to have to wait. How long, Alicia?
5-6 weeks, so we'll probably have a couple more episodes in between. I think next time Melinda has something special for us in the form. You want to introduce?
I'm so excited about it. It's actually going to be an angel reading. We'll go more into detail on that on the next episode, but I am super excited, and I'm praying that it comes out exactly how I imagine it.
Yes, I am so excited. I think that we will go more into our family trees, and then once we get Melinda's results, I will go through and try to confirm as many matches as I can, and I will be able to share with you guys any close family members, maybe some first cousins, or just people who are related in ways that Melinda wasn't expecting. And then also we'll find out if we are actually related through my dad. Definitely tune in for that episode and next time. We have a lot of exciting things planned, and thank you so much for tuning in.
Before we go, I want to know, where can we follow you on Instagram so that anybody that has actual questions on this can actually reach out to you personally?
Yes. So my personal Instagram is ramlove6, which is RAMLOV, and then the number 6. And then you can always message me. I am also Alicia Yvette on Facebook. You can also reach me there. You can
reach out to us on the podcast,
YouTube.
as well.
If you comment on our YouTube, we'll get it. So I will be happy to answer your questions. I mean, I just took on 3 kits, even though I really shouldn't be taking on more, but I just love it so much, and I do the best I can in my schedule to just dig. It's like literally when I have a free moment, it's just fun for me.
All right. And if you have any questions, or if you're end up being one of my family members and you want to reach out to me, just like they did to Alicia, you can follow me at MellyMel818. That's MELLEMEL 818 on Instagram. And on Facebook, I am under Melinda Yvette as well. So definitely reach out to us. Stay tuned.
All right. Thanks for tuning in for today. That's it for today's episode. Don't forget, life comes together eventually. Thanks for listening. Tune in with us for our next episode.
Please follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, and Anchor FM. And we're also on Instagram and YouTube, which can be found in the description links.
Make sure you comment and let us know what you want to hear in future episodes.